Hello, everyone. I am Kavya, and this is my interesting story. Today, I will share how I learned English all by myself. So let's start. Chapter 1: A World Beyond My Village. My name is Kavya, and I was born in a small village called Sitapur, nestled among green fields and muddy roads. Sitapur was my entire world, and for the longest time, I thought it would be the only world I'd ever know. The people in my village were kind and hardworking, but they lived simple lives. We spoke only Hindi, and for many of us, the idea of learning English was as distant as the stars. As the eldest of 3 siblings, I was expected to help around the house, take care of my younger brothers, and eventually marry and start a family of my own. My father, a farmer, often told me that my place was at home. "What use is English to a girl in our village?" he would ask, his voice stern but not unkind. But even as a child, I knew there was a world beyond Sitapur, a world I could only glimpse in the pages of old newspapers or on the rare occasions when someone from the city would visit. In that world, people spoke English, wore different clothes, and had opportunities that seemed unimaginable to me. I didn't know how or why, but I felt that if I could learn English, I could somehow become a part of that world. My mother was the first person to encourage me. She saw something in me that others didn't. "If you want to learn, learn," she would say quietly, her eyes filled with a hope she never spoke aloud. And so I decided that I would teach myself English, no matter how difficult it might be. Chapter 2: My First Attempts. Learning English was not easy. The village school had a few old English textbooks, but they were worn and filled with words that made no sense to me. The teachers were kind, but not fluent in English themselves. It was a subject we studied out of obligation, not interest. But I was determined. I borrowed an old English-Hindi dictionary from the school library and began to memorize words, one by one. At first, I struggled. The words felt strange on my tongue, and I often forgot their meanings as soon as I learned them. But I didn't give up. Every day, I would sit with that dictionary, repeating words, writing them down, and trying to make sense of the language that seemed so foreign. Some of the villagers laughed at me. They couldn't understand why I was wasting my time on something they believed had no use in our lives. "Why bother with English?" they would say. "You'll never need it here." But I didn't let their words discourage me. I knew they didn't see what I saw, that English was a key to a world of opportunities. My younger siblings became my first audience. They would sit with me as I practiced speaking English, their eyes wide with curiosity. They didn't understand much, but they were fascinated by the strange sounds I was making. Their interest gave me the confidence to keep going, even when the words seemed impossible to remember. Chapter 3: A Turning Point. One day, everything changed. I remember it vividly. It was a hot afternoon, and I was sitting under the neem tree in our courtyard, struggling to read a sentence from an old English newspaper that had found its way to our village. The words danced before my eyes, refusing to make sense, and for a moment, I felt like giving up. But then something clicked. The sentence began to unravel, and suddenly I understood it. It was a simple sentence, something about the weather in a distant city, but it was the first time I had truly understood something in English without translating it in my head first. I felt a thrill of excitement, a sense of achievement that I had never felt before. For the first time, I believed that I could really learn this language, that I could become fluent in English. From that day on, I devoted myself to learning with even more determination. I practiced reading every English word I could find, whether in newspapers, on labels, or in the old textbooks from school. I started writing in English too, keeping a journal where I would try to express my thoughts in the new language. It was slow work, but each day I could feel myself improving. Chapter 4: Seeking Help. Despite my progress, I knew I needed help if I was to truly master English. But in Sitapur, there were few people who could teach me. So I turned to the only resource I had, the radio. We had an old radio at home, and every evening I would tune in to English language programs. At first, the words were just a blur of sound, too fast for me to understand. But I kept listening, picking out familiar words and phrases, trying to piece together what they were saying. It was through the radio that I discovered the voice of a young woman named Anita, who hosted an English learning program. She spoke slowly and clearly, explaining the meanings of words and phrases, and encouraging her listeners to repeat after her. Anita became my teacher, my guide in this journey I had embarked upon. I would listen to her every evening, practicing along with her, and slowly but surely, my understanding of English grew. But I still faced challenges. My father remained skeptical of my efforts, and there were days when I doubted myself. I knew that learning English wouldn't change my circumstances overnight. I was still a girl from a small village with limited resources and opportunities. But I held on to the belief that if I could learn English, I could create opportunities for myself, that I could carve out a life that was different from what had been planned for me. Chapter 5: A New Opportunity. My hard work eventually paid off in a way I had never imagined. One day, a representative from a nonprofit organization visited our village. They were offering training and jobs to young women in nearby cities, provided they could speak basic English. The idea was to empower women from rural areas by giving them skills that would allow them to work in customer service, retail, or even as receptionists in small businesses. When the representative asked if there were any young women in the village who knew English, I hesitated. I wasn't sure if my English was good enough, but with a nudge from my mother, I stepped forward. The representative asked me a few questions in English, and though my answers were halting and nervous, I managed to get through them. To my surprise, I was accepted into the program. The training was held in a town about 50 kilometers away from Stetapur, and for the first time, I traveled outside my village on my own. It was a terrifying experience, but also exhilarating. The world beyond Sitapur was bigger and more complex than I had imagined, but it was also full of possibilities. The training was intense, and I struggled at first, but I was determined to succeed. I wanted to prove to myself and to my family that I could do this. Chapter 6: Finding My Voice. During the training, I met other young women like me, some from villages, others from small towns, all of us eager to learn and to create a better life for ourselves. We bonded over our shared experiences, and for the first time, I didn't feel so alone in my journey. We supported each other, practiced English together, and shared our dreams of what we wanted to achieve. The trainers were patient and understanding, and they taught us not just English, but also how to present ourselves with confidence. They showed us how to communicate effectively, how to handle difficult situations, and how to believe in ourselves. Slowly, I began to find my voice. I learned to speak up, to ask questions, and to express my thoughts in English without fear. At the end of the training, we were given the opportunity to interview for jobs. I was nervous, but I reminded myself of how far I had come. When it was my turn to interview, I walked into the room with my head held high. The interviewer asked me questions in English, and though I stumbled a few times, I answered them to the best of my ability. A few days later, I received a call. I had been offered a job as a receptionist at a small hotel in the town where we had trained. It wasn't a high-paying job, but it was a start, a chance to earn my own money, to be self-reliant, and to continue improving my English. Chapter 8: Looking ahead today, as I look back on my journey, I am filled with gratitude. Learning English was not just about mastering a language, it was about finding my voice, discovering my potential, and carving out a new path for myself. It taught me that with determination and hard work, even the most distant dreams can become a reality. I still live in Sitapur, but my world has expanded far beyond the village. I regularly visit the town where I work, and through my job, I have met people from different parts of the country. Each interaction has been a learning experience, each conversation a step forward. The skills I've acquired have opened doors to opportunities I had only dreamed of before. But perhaps the most rewarding part of this journey has been the impact it has had on my family and my village. My parents, especially my father, now understand the value of what I've achieved. They see the pride in my eyes, the confidence in my speech, and the respect I've earned from others. Their support has grown stronger, and they've become more open to the idea that education and self-improvement are vital, no matter where you come from. I've also started a small community initiative to help other young girls in Sitapur who dream of learning English and achieving their own goals. With the support of local volunteers and a few friends from the town, we've set up a small library and language center where people can come to learn English and access educational resources. It's our way of giving back, of creating opportunities where none existed before. As I continue to grow in my career and personal life, I am more determined than ever to keep pushing boundaries. Learning English has given me the courage to explore new avenues and embrace challenges. I'm now considering further studies and even thinking about starting my own business in the future. The journey from silence to self-reliance has been a long and challenging one, but it has also been incredibly fulfilling. It has taught me that no dream is too big, no goal too distant if you are willing to work hard and believe in yourself. I hope my story can inspire others who might be in a similar situation, who might feel confined by their circumstances, to take that first step towards their own dreams. As I look to the future, I am excited about what lies ahead. I am grateful for every lesson learned, every obstacle overcome, and every moment of triumph. And I know that no matter where life takes me, the journey of learning, growing, and striving will always be a part of who I am. In the end, it wasn't just about learning a language, it was about transforming my life. And that, I believe, is a journey worth every step.